Alright, so you wake up in the morning, and what do you think about? What you're going to wear for the day, what you're going to have for breakfast, if you're going to wear glasses or contacts, your toilet. No, you don't think about your toilet. But why not? It's your throne, your comforter when you're sick, your reading nook. Why don't we think about it? Why don't we appreciate it? No more, my friends. No more. Let's start with talking about the original potty. I found out on Wikipedia.com that there are examples of flush toilets dating back to 3,000 years ago in places like India and Pakistan and Scotland. Even the Romans used a sort of squat toilet. They didn't have a flush toilet, but they had come up to a hygienic standard where they had holes elevated above the sewer, which is kind of like the outhouses, which were the first toilets in America. Everyone knows what an outhouse looks like. It's the basic little square shack that is about 7 feet tall, and we know that it kind of probably smells. Well, I found a website called Legends of America that had an entire section about outhouses. And what they said is that outhouses are normally placed about 50 to 100 feet from the house, which has obvious reasons behind that. And they normally had at least 2 different little holes, which is not for volume control. That's for the adults and the children. So there's 1 big hole and 1 little hole. Although there are some outhouses that have been known to have up to 12 holes for plenty of usage. There are even some 2-story outhouses, but those aren't as common. Now, if you're watching a cartoon or you're reading a comic and there's an outhouse involved, it's probably going to have a crescent moon. This dates back to the colonial times when the female outhouses were shown with a crescent moon and the male outhouses were shown with a star. Now, there's more crescent moon ones, and that's believed to be because females take better care of their property than the men do, but that's not proven or anything, but it does make sense. As for toilet paper, most families did not have the real deal because that cost too much. So they used things like newspapers and magazines, which also provided good reading material. So, today, for those of us who have real toilet paper and the real toilet, we can thank Thomas Crapper. Crapper came before the name, the word, and that name was actually brought back by American soldiers who were over in England in World War II, and they found his name stamped on all the toilets. I found on Toiletology.com, though, that he might not be the only creator of the toilet. We have also Sir John Harington and a man named George Jennings, and also possibly an ancient Greek Minoan 4,000 years ago. But in any case, what they did to make this toilet so great is 3 main parts. You have the bowl siphon, the flush mechanism, and the refill mechanism. What the bowl siphon does is basically your toilet itself. It's the bowl with the little tube that goes behind it. And what that tube does is it follows the water level, and if you go above the bend, then the toilet will flush. So you can still have a toilet, you can just pour your water into it, and the toilet will flush even without the tank. Now, the flush mechanism is basically that, just dropping the water into the tank, like pouring a bucket in and flushing the toilet. And so what that flush mechanism does is it pulls the valve and allows the water stored in the tank to go into the bowl and the toilet to flush. The refill mechanism is what allows the toilet to fill back up and the tank to fill back up, and it's just, it uses a little filler float gauge, and it follows the water level, and it knows when to shut the water off. And I found all that on howstuffworks.com because it seems like a great place to learn things. Now, there's different types of toilets today. You have things like high-efficiency toilets, and that's to get less water take, because the average toilet will take about 5 gallons per flush. And so today, with these more energy-efficient toilets, it'll be about 1.5 to 2 gallons per flush. If you don't want to spend the money for a new toilet, you can go ahead and follow the Yellow Mellow movement, which you might have heard of. It says, if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. But that's to each their own. Now, there are many different types of things that go into the toilet category. You have things like bidets and urinals and female urinals, which I actually found some female urinals once at the Student Center at A&M before they remodeled, and I have to admit that I'm definitely still a fan of the regular old toilet. But speaking of public restrooms, those are definitely a place that has a bad reputation, I guess you could say. People try to avoid them at all costs for things like germs and that myth about STDs and toilet seats. But I live in a community-style dorm, And I have to admit that for a while it took me a little bit of time to be comfortable with that type of bathroom, but now I actually kind of enjoy it because it gives a better sense of community. But that's one place, and generally I hate public bathrooms. But some companies do use public bathrooms as a way to stand out. I found a website called purpleslinky.com, and it had a list of the 10 most interesting public restrooms out there. And they had one at the Kohler Art Museum, and Kohler is a manufacturer of toilets, and they had their bathroom. They hired 6 different artists to go ahead for 6 different stalls, and they created different masterpieces basically, and they're beautiful and functional, and I think it'd be kind of fun to use. But here in Texas, you might be more aware of a place called Buc-ee's, and they are well known and pride themselves on their super clean, large bathrooms. They even advertise it on billboards all over the state. My dad himself will drive miles extra just to get to a Buc-ee's if there's one available, because he says their bathrooms are so good. One of the coolest toilets I've ever seen, though, was shown to me by an architectural history professor, and it was in a pub in England, and they were urinals that were shaped like gargoyles. But when I was looking for a photo of this online, I found out that there are a lot of interesting, really weird things out there, and there's some like the Rolling Stones' mouth, there's alligators, there's one that was like a football field that was for aiming, and there's also in South Korea a golden toilet, pure gold. Now, we may not all be able to use such unique toilets, and most definitely most of us will never get a chance to sit on that golden throne, but that doesn't really seem to be a very practical choice to me anyways. But in any case, we have to remember that the toilet is one of the best inventions in the household. Just remember and think of those outhouses the next freezing morning when you have to go and do your business. And so next time you should thank Thomas Crapper, or whoever invented that toilet, because we all owe him one. And now if my audience has any questions, go ahead and answer. I think I covered it too well.
Oh, don't look at us! So, this is a celebration? You're celebrating the toilet?
I am celebrating the toilet.
Because, sum it up in one line for me.
I mean, what would you do without it? You'd be stuck with a hole in the ground.
Well, you're talking about how toilets are known for being unsanitary, but you said that that was a myth. So you're saying they're pretty sanitary?
Not toilets being sanitary is a myth. STDs, being able to catch an STD from the toilet seat is a myth. Toilets are sanitary depending on who and how they're cleaned.
Okay.
Not every toilet is equally clean.
Okay.
Any other questions? Alright, well I'm going to go ahead and show my audience as a whole real fast. And I'll just take that and... There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.